No Soy here, and welcome back to another video. In the last Pokemon challenge, we tried to beat Pokemon Black 2 with only a Typic, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. In today's challenge though, we're going to be trying to beat Pokemon Silver with only a Totodile. To be honest, after the Cyndaquil solo run went, I really was not looking forward to doing this run, but at the same time, that was Pokemon Heart Gold, and this is Pokemon Silver. Then I also have 3 times speed up, so this might not be that bad. Then also, it's a new starter Pokemon and a water type, so I'm actually excited for this run. But if you haven't already, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more challenge videos such as these. I'm trying to reach 5,000 subs by the end of the year, so be sure to show your support that way. Anyway, with the introduction out of the way, let's actually go ahead and start this run. Alright, so Totodile's base stat total is 314, with its attack and defense being his strong suits. When compared to Cyndaquil, its total is only 5 points higher, but you can see the difference between the two, as Cyndaquil is more of a special attacker and Totodile is more of a physical attacker. To level up though, Totodile doesn't learn too many moves, but his most important moves will most likely be Rage, Water Gun, and Bite for early game, and Slash and Hydro Pump for more mid to late game. As for TM moves though, Totodile actually has a pretty good selection to choose from, although the majority of these moves are just normal and water type moves with a few fighting and ground type moves in the mix. But the moves I can see is using most will most likely be Headbutt and Blizzard / Icy Wind, Earthquake, Return, Surf, and if it comes to it, even Double Team, but that's like more like a last resort at the end. But now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and actually jump into the challenge rules. Number 1, I can only use Totodile in battle, however I can use other Pokemon for TM moves. Number 2, I can't use items in battle, however held items and items outside of battle are allowed. And lastly, number 3, I can't use any hacks or glitches, but I can use speed up to be able to beat the game faster. But now that the challenge rules are out of the way, let's go ahead and start this run. So we start the run off by talking to Professor Oak, and he allows us to choose a Pokemon. We choose Totodile and name it Crocky, and then we head off to Cherry Grove City, where we run into some kid with red hair who wants to battle us. Since we chose Totodile, he has a level 5 Chikorita who isn't hard to beat at all. We just use Rage a bunch of times while managing to dodge a tackle until our Rage builds up enough, and eventually we take the Chikorita out. We then go back to Professor Oak's lab, and it turns out this kid with the red hair is actually our rival, and I name him Subscribe, which you definitely should do if you haven't already. Fast forward a little bit and we have our first gym coming up in Violet City. Folkner is a flying type user, which means when it comes to typing he shouldn't give us any trouble. He has 2 Pokemon, being a level 7 Pidgey which only knows Tackle and Mud Slap, and a level 9 Pidgeotto which knows Gust on top of those moves. This being said though, they don't have anything that's super effective against us, so hopefully this gym won't be too hard to beat. But we challenge Folkner at level 12 and Pidgey comes out first, and we manage to do decent damage against it with Scratch while it only uses Tackle, doing very little damage to us. After a few scratches though, we take it out and learn Water Gun in the process. Lastly is Pidgeotto, and we just trade Gus and our newly attained Water Gun against each other until we eventually overpower and take it out, which is a little under half health left to spare, winning us the first gym badge. At the top of Bellsprout Tower, we run into our rival again. However, instead of battling, he just starts yapping about wanting stronger Pokemon before leaving with an escape rope. We go over and talk to the village elder who wants to battle us. He has 2 Bellsprouts, which I just use Scratch against them both to easily overpower them and take them both out while being left on 17 HP. His last Pokemon is a Hoot, and it only uses Foresight and misses a tackle on us, which allows me to use a few Water Guns and a Scratch to eventually finish it off. We then rush over to this cave where we find the Team Rocket grunts that stole a bunch of Slowpoke. We take them out pretty easily, and then Kurt comes running to us and brings us home to where he makes Pokeballs for us. I don't know exactly why this is important to us, but it's a part of the story, so who cares. Anyway though, gym number 2 is coming up, and it's the Bug Gym. Bugsy has 2 Pokemon, being a level 14 Metapod, a level 14 Kakuna, and a level 16 Scyther. And none of them have anything that's super effective against us, so that's good. The only thing I can see that could be worrying is Poison Stings, since it can poison us, but besides that I think we should be okay. First out is Metapod, and we manage to land a critical hit Scratch against it to bring it into the yellow, and then it misses with String Shot, which allows us to finish it off with another Scratch. Next is Kakuna, who just uses Harden, and it goes down with 2 scratches. Last out is Scyther, who does barely any damage with Quick Attack and even less with Fury Cutter. We just spam Scratch against it while it repeats those 2 moves until we eventually take it out with a little under half health left to win us the fight against Bugsy. After leaving the gym, we're faced against our rival again, and this fight does take a good amount of attempts to beat. I'm able to take out his Ghastly every time with a super effective bite, but Bayleaf is just so powerful, especially because Razor Leaf critical hits almost every single time. That and where we lose each attempt. After a few attempts though, we get a run where Bayleaf doesn't critical hit at all, and I did think we were going to lose this because Bayleaf survived on the smallest little bit of health, but would have been able to take us out. But a lucky bite causes it to flinch, and we take it out on the next turn. Last is Zubat, who does very little damage with Bite, and then we retaliate back and take it out with a few bites to finally win us this fight against our rival. Alright, so the next gym battle we have is in Goldenrod City against a normal type user Whitney, and she has two Pokemon being a level 18 Clefairy and a level 20 Miltank. Clefairy shouldn't give us too many issues, but based off of the previous fight with Whitney in the past, I know that Miltank is going to be a little hard because it's able to take a lot of hits, and when it gets slowed, I mean, this man just sucks his own titties to get his health back up, so yeah, this might be a little challenging to do, but let's see how it goes. Alright, the first attempt for this, I was able to take out the Clefairy with a few scratch attacks while it does little damage to us with Double Slap. Miltank though can outspeed us and goes for rollout and over time it just does more and more damage to us, and when we get it low it uses one final rollout to finish us off. A few attempts later and I decided to just spam bite to hope to make it flinch, and luckily this actually worked and I managed to make it flinch twice, which makes it have to reset rollout to where it doesn't do as much damage to us, and eventually we take it out, finally winning us our third gym badge. I also go ahead and decide to teach Crocky Surf since it's a lot stronger than Water Gun. The next gym is the Ghost Gym in Ikrutuk City against Morty, and he has 4 Pokemon. A level 21 Ghastly, a level 21 and level 23 Haunter, and a level 25 Gengar. So this gym could potentially be tricky. I mean, if you look, you can see that 2 of our Pokemon have Hypnosis, and I don't have anything that can counter that, which means I could be taking hits for 3+ rounds without being able to attack. On top of that, Gengar also has Dream Eater, which means if it puts me to sleep and uses Dream Eater, I'm finished. I just hope this gym isn't as bad as I'm hyping it up to be, but we shall see. Alright, so the first attempt at this fight, I was able to take both of the Ghastly and the Hunter with a just single hit from Surf. And then with Gengar, it uses Hypnosis, which doesn't affect us, and we drop it to half health with Surf, but then somehow Hypnosis magically affects us all of a sudden, and we fall asleep, and just as I expected, I get wiped out by Dream Eater. I tried numerous attempts at this, and I just couldn't win. Every single attempt I did, I always got put to sleep by Gengar, and then it would just use Dream Eater or some other attack which takes me out before I could wake up. Many attempts later, and somehow Gengar's Hypnosis doesn't affect us twice, and we're able to easily take it out with 2 Surf without ever getting hit once. Lastly is Hunter, who gets one-shotted by Surf for the win. So yeah, how does that work, bruh? I mean, like all of those attempts just for one time the game decides, yeah, Hypnosis isn't effective anymore, and I can just take it out so easily. But you know, it's whatever, man. But anyway, now that's out of the way, we can make our way over to the Burnt Tower where we have our next rival fight. I don't really need to go into detail for this fight since there isn't much to talk about. I mean, I was able to one-shot Haunter, Magnemite, and Zubat with just 1 Surf, and then Bailey only uses Poison Powder to poison me, which doesn't matter as we're still able to use 2 Surfs to take it out. So yeah, a pretty easy win for us. A little up ahead, we run into Lance, who is waiting for us outside of a hidden Team Rocket hideout, and immediately as I get down there the stairs, I get pressed by 2 different guys at once. I mean, they weren't hard to beat, but I mean, that's besides the point, like, they didn't even give me time to react. Well, anyway, further on into the base, and we run into our rival again, but turns out, he just got whooped by Lance, and he goes running away crying. Right after this, though, we run into Team Rocket executive member, who says Team Rocket will return one day and wants to fight us to stop us from interfering. First out is Zubat, who falls to a single Surf. Next is Raticate, who I get a critical hit on with Slash to take it out. Lastly is Coughing, who did actually manage to survive a Slash and hit us for a Sludge, but that did nothing at all, and we finish it off with the final Slash for the win. He also does some weird jump animation when he left, and I don't know what that was all about. But the next gym that I went to was the Ice Gym in Mahogany Town. I didn't know it then, but this is actually the 7th gym, so whoops. Not really my fault though. I mean, this is the first time playing Pokemon Silver in general, and in general the second time ever playing the Johto region, so I think I'll get a pass. But nonetheless, it's still a gym, so we're going over it. Price has 3 Pokemon, being level 27 Seal, a level 29 Dewang, and a level 31 Piloswine. Looking at the 3, I don't see anything that they have that is concerning. I mean, Ice isn't very effective against Water type, but you know, it's also the same the other way around. Piloswine is also part Ground type, so I'm pretty sure Surf will be super effective against it. And for the rest of his Pokemon, I can just spam Slash and hope for the best. Alright, so I was able to land a critical hit Slash to one-shot the Seal. Next is Dewang, who survived a critical hit Slash, but did very little damage in return, and we took it out. Last out is Piloswine, who survived a Slash with about 1/3 health left, and hits for minimal damage with Blizzard. He actually survives another Slash with almost nothing left to his name, and Price heals up. After doing less than half health again with my next Slash, I just switched over to Surf, which was actually super effective against it, and took it out. So yeah, I probably should have done that just from the beginning, but I mean, it's not like it took too many attempts to beat, you know, just one attempt, but so yeah, that's not big of a deal. Just like before, we run into our rival, but he's just complaining again and then runs away without winning a battle. He does tell us to go to the lighthouse though, and once again when we get there, we find the steel gym leader, Jasmine, at the top, and she tells us that the Pokemon is sick and needs a certain medicine, which we can find in Silentwood City. While we're over there, we decided to challenge the gym there. Chuck uses fighting types and he only has 2 Pokemon, with one being a level 27 Primeape and a level 30 Poliwrath. Primeape shouldn't be too hard to beat since Rage doesn't do that much damage on the first hit, and I know we should be able to survive the Karate Chop. As for Poliwrath, it can use Hypnosis, which can be concerning, but aside from that, only attacking move that it can do something to us is Dynamic Punch, which has a super low accuracy of 50%. Okay, so Primeape was a complete joke, and I was able to one-shot it with Surf. Poliwrath did take a few hits from Slash to go down, and it does manage to land a Dynamic Punch, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. Krakiwaki then pushes through the confusion that it gets, and it takes out the Poliwrath on the next turn to win us our next gym badge. We then head back to Jasmine and give her medicine, and after she heals the Pokemon, she says we can now challenge her at the gym. She doesn't actually have any trainers at her gym, so we can just easily go up and challenge her immediately. I don't even have to go over play-by-play of her team because it was an easy sweep. I mean, I was able to overpower both of her Magnemites with a Surf, and then Steelix is also part ground type, so Surf was super effective against it and also one-shotting it, winning us the 6th gym badge. We fight with the top executive Rocket guy again, and I'm not going over this fight in detail. I mean, this fight consisted of just spamming Surf on all 6 of his Pokemon, and this fight wasn't even hard. I mean, almost all of his Pokemon were the same man. In the basement of an underground tunnel in Goldenrod City, we have to fight with our rival. We did lose a few attempts to him. One of them was because I didn't know about his Friable fight, so I didn't have a chance to go back to the Pokemon Center and heal up. So when I got to Sneasel, all I had was Bite, which does absolutely nothing because it's also part Dark type. And little by little, it finishes me off. I also lost a few times to Magnemium because, super effectiveness. But a few attempts later, and I was able to survive a Razor Leaf and make Magnemium flinch so many times with Bite, and we were able to take it out. From there, I was able to one-shot the Haunter with Surf, and then Sneasel survived 2 slashes and dropped me to 10 HP before I was able to luckily finish it off for the win. I've run into this Team Rocket group many times before, and just from looking at her, you already know who this really is. Anyway, in the radio tower, we fight this executive dude, and again, his team just gets demolished by us. His first Pokemon is a Houndour, and then his last Pokemon is Houndoom, so Surf was super effective against them both. And then Coffee just didn't stand a chance either, and it also went down to Surf, so yeah, an easy win. Alright, so now we made it to the final gym, the Dragon Gym. Alright, so Claire has 4 Pokemon, with 3 of them being a level 37 Dragonairs, and her final Pokemon being a level 40 Kingdra. Now this gym might be a little concerning because all 3 of her Pokemon have something super effective against us, which is Thunder. Not only that, but Dragonair have Thunder Waves, which means they all have the ability to paralyze us. So yeah, that combo doesn't really seem like the nicest thing to have against us, and I don't have any Ice, Dragon, or Fairy moves that I can learn right now, so I'm just going to have to depend on Slash and Bite for the moment, but let's go see how we do. Alright, so I do lose a few times here because either the first or the second Dragonair used Thunder Wave on me, which paralyzes me. It become much slower and always get outsped and either critical hit with Thunder or just take too much damage all around. Many attempts later though, when I managed to take the first Dragonair out in a one-shot. The second Dragonair with a 2-shot after getting paralyzed by Thunder Wave. The third Dragonair does do about 1/4 damage with Thunder before falling to 2 slashes. Kingdra goes for a Dragon Breath for a little damage, and we managed to land a critical hit with Slash to take it out, winning us our final gym badge of the run. Before making our way to the Pokemon League, we're stopped by our rival for one final fight. This fight was actually really easy, surprisingly. I mean, all of his Pokemon went down in one-shots except for Magnemium, which took 3 hits to go down, the lucky final critical hit, and we only get hit once with Razor Leaf, which leaves us in the yellow. The first Elite Four member is the Psychic user Will, and we do lose a few times. The main thing I'm seeing here is that I'm just taking too much damage per Pokemon and go down by the time I reach the final Xatu. Luckily though, we get a good run. We were able to take out the first Xatu with 2 bites and only taking a little bit of damage. The Executor only uses Reflect, which allows me to take it out with 2 super effective bites without taking any damage. We were lucky enough to make the Jinx flinch, so we were also able to take it out in 2 hits. Slowbro did take a few hits to go down after it used Amnesia, but we managed to make it flinch a few times and take it out without taking any damage as well. Lastly is the final Xatu, and just like before, we make it flinch and take it out in 2 hits for a nice lucky win. The next Elite Four member is the Poison user Koga, and to be honest, there isn't much to say about this fight. I mean, it was just super easy. None of his Pokemon were able to do any real damage to us, and we were able to just brute force our way through this just by spamming Slash, Surf, and Hydro Pump until we eventually win the fight against Koga. The third Elite Four member is Bruno, and just like the last fight, this fight wasn't really hard at all. I mean, I will admit though, we did come close to losing. I mean, like, Koga's team is surprisingly really weak, but Bruno was actually on it, and his Pokemon were doing some good damage to us, and by the end of the fight, we were left on 22 HP, so yeah, we definitely could have lost that, but luckily we didn't. So onto the last Elite Four member. Karen's first Pokemon is an Umbreon, and it uses Sand Attack on me, so my accuracy is lower, and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage to us, which is good, but we did miss a slash once, but luckily that doesn't matter as we were able to finish it off with a few hits. Next is Vileplume, and luckily it only uses Stun Spore, which somehow doesn't affect us, so even after missing one of our hits, we were still able to take it out with the final slash. Next is Gengar, who does very little damage with Lick, and it goes down after using 2 super effective bites. We were almost able to one-shot the Murkrow with the Surf, but it holds on for dear life and hits us for a little damage with Feint Attack, and then on the next turn we finish it off with Bite. Lastly is Houndoom, and we miss a Surf and get dropped to 4 HP. Luckily though, we were able to land our next Surf and one-shot it for the win. Alright, so I tried this champion fight for a good 20 minutes and just could not win. Now the first few attempts consisted of me constantly losing to a Dragonite from either getting paralyzed or taken out by super effective Thunderbolts. A few attempts later and I tried using Bite instead, hoping for a flinch, and this worked a little, but it wasn't consistent and I still kept losing. After all these attempts, I decided to teach Crocky Icy Wind since it's super effective and also Headbutt as it can cause flinch. Now I did lose a few times from this, but I eventually learned to first use Headbutt hoping for a flinch, and then finished the Dragonite off with Icy Wind, and this actually worked great, and I was able to just get past all of the Dragonite, and then I just demolished that Aerodactyl and Charizard with a Hydro Pump, which finally secured me the victory against the Pokemon champion, and crowning me the new champion. Now you would think this is over, right? Well, no, we still have all of Kanto and Red to go up against, so let's jump right into that. Now since I've only played this game twice, I have no idea what to do or where to go for this whole second part of the game, so I ended up battling all the gym leaders out of order, so sorry if it seems odd seeing me fight them out of order, but I don't think the order really matters. Alright, so the first gym leader we fought was Leader Surge, and he wasn't exactly hard, but the only problem was paralysis. Like each time I got paralyzed, I became slower, and then we would take a super effective hit and lose. A few attempts later though, and he became an easy sweep as I was able to one-shot the Raichu and Magneton with only a Hydro Pump, and then Electabuzz' Thunder misses and I was able to finish it off with a Headbutt. Last we have the 2 Electrode, who one survives a Headbutt, but then takes itself out with Self-Destruct, and the other does get me low, but I was able to overpower it and still take it out, winning me the fight against Surge. Gym number 2 is the Psychic Gym, and I did lose a few times at this gym, and even winning came very close. The Espeon just barely survives a Hydro Pump and then uses Sand Attack on us to lower our accuracy, but we still managed to finish it off with another Hydro Pump. Mr. Mime also survives a Hydro Pump, but Yoon uses Reflect, and we switch over to Headbutt to finish it off. Lastly is Alakazam, who hits us pretty hard with Psychic before we use Headbutt and do roughly around the same amount of damage back. Alakazam then drops us to super low, all the way to 9 HP before we land a final Hydro Pump to take it out, winning us our second gym badge of Kanto. Next on our list is Janin, and she was actually really easy to beat. Crobat fell to a single Icy Wind, and then Ariados just barely survives an Icy Wind and hits us for a little damage with Nightshade, and on the next turn we take it out with a Headbutt. Our first Headbutt caused Weezing to flinch, which allowed us to attack again and take it out without taking any damage. Weezing number 2 fell to a critical hit Headbutt, and then Venomoth went down after getting hit by Icy Wind, followed up by a Headbutt after we wasted a turn using Double Team, which wins us the fight against Janin. Misty was the next gym leader we faced, and she was even easier to beat since her Pokemon were all water types, so they couldn't do any real damage to us, and I just spammed Headbutt on all of our Pokemon until they eventually got overpowered and taken out for an easy win. Before our next gym, we had to wake up Snorlax, and after what I went through the last time I played Heart Gold, I made it my mission to catch this thing so that I can obtain the leftovers. Now I won't show all my resets, only the clip where I actually caught it, but in total I think I spent around 20 minutes trying to catch it, which without 3 times speed, up to an hour. So yeah, I'm happy I got speed up. Our next gym on the list though was Brock, and I'm not even gonna talk about this fight. I mean, just roll the clips, man. We didn't find Blaine inside of this little cave, and just like Brock, he gets absolutely demolished by us, man. Alright, so after Blaine is blue, and his Pidgeot took my Icy Wing like a champ, but does very little damage with Wing Attack, and then on the next turn, Crocky misses Hydro Pump and takes another low damage Wing Attack. On the next turn though, Hydro Pump lands and takes it out. Exeggutor gets brought to half health with Icy Wind, and then decides to take an energy, and we finish it off with a second Icy Wind. Alakazam outspeeds us and does a little under half damage to us with Psychic, before we one-shot it with a Hydro Pump. Gyarados does decent damage to us with Hyper Beam, but then it has to recharge on the next turn, and we take this time to keep attacking it with Headbutt until it finally goes down. Blue's last Pokemon are Rhydon and Arcanine, and we just use Hydro Pump against them both and take them out in a one-shot to win us the fight against Blue. Now at the final gym we have to face in Kanto, the Grass Gym. And unlike the Squirtle run, this gym was really easy due to having Icy Wind, as we're able to one-shot Erika's entire team except for her Bellossom, who actually survived it, but just used a Sunny Day and we finished it off on the next turn, winning us the final gym badge needed in Kanto. Alright, so now the final battle we've all been waiting for, Red. So my first few attempts, what I noticed were that I couldn't outspeed Pikachu and I couldn't survive Thunder either, so we had to wait for a run to where it missed, and luckily Hydro Pump is able to one-shot it when it does miss, so we were able to get past the Pikachu sometimes. However, the real problem is Venusaur. Every attempt I've done, Venusaur always takes an energy on the first turn, and when we do attack it does very little damage to it and get taken out on the next turn in a one-shot. I decided that since I was only level 77 that I would have to grind a few levels and see where I stand then. Now I went ahead and went around all the game to getting all the rare candies that I could, and I was able to get 10 of them, and I didn't want to use them and still lose, and then I have to waste more time grinding since I would be a higher level. So I took an hour and grinded all the way to level 90 so that I could use the rare candies, which would bring me to level 100. And I actually forgot to use the rare candies and went into this fight by accident, but I definitely did see some improvement. I was able to outspeed and still one-shot the Pikachu with Hydro Pump, and then I was also able to outspeed the Venusaur and do more damage than before. However, not enough and I get hit by Solar Beam. However, I was able to just barely survive on 12 HP and finish it off. Espeon though was able to outspeed us and finish it off. Afterwards though, I remember to use all my rare candies and get to level 100, and wouldn't you believe it, I did it. Like before, I did good damage to Venusaur and then tanked a Solar Beam at 50 HP before finishing it off. This time I decided to go for a Headbutt to make Espeon flinch, and this works, and we finish it off with another Headbutt on the next turn. Snorlax comes out next and we do decent damage with Hydro Pump, and then it just uses Amnesia, so we switch over to Headbutt and make it flinch, which allowed us to do one more Headbutt to finish it off. We did decent damage to Blastoise with Headbutt also, and then it hit us with a very weak Surf, and then on the next turn we also managed to make it flinch and then finish it off on the next turn after that. And lastly is Charizard, who went down to a single Hydro Pump, which wins us the fight against Red. And now finally, after around 10 hours and 45 minutes of real time, or 27 hours and 30 minutes of in-game time, we can finally answer the question of, can you beat Pokemon Silver with only a Totodile? And the answer is yes, you can. Now this challenge was actually really fun to do, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too hard to do, but it was also challenging at the same time. And I'm happy that I didn't have to spend another 40 hours trying to beat this challenge like I did the other hard gold run, because that definitely would have sucked. Now the Pokemon Gold and Silver games are my favorite Pokemon games, but they are unique nonetheless, and I did enjoy myself. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this Pokemon challenge. In the next Pokemon challenge, I will be trying to beat Pokemon Ruby with only a Mudkip, which I think will be really fun to do. But just like my YouTube post, I will be starting the building process for FNAF Sister Location, and we'll try to have that tutorial out by either the end of next week or the end of the week after that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.